Jon, it's not good enough. This camera stuff's not good enough. You're an idiot! That almost killed me internally, you idiot. Oh, sucked the life out of me like I was a kid again, like I was a little baby. You know that that's my fear.
Yeah.
I fear that I'm an idiot. So that was the perfect word to use. And fear is not just something in your mind that you're worrying about a future event, but fear feels like it takes over your whole body.
I had a bit of a sort of an angry boss a few years ago. He sent me into being petrified of him. A couple of days later I quit.
You were gone. Wow, look at how petrified you were. Maybe you could ask your fear, do I need you in this moment?
Yeah.
Because remember, we're going back to those scenarios where sometimes we need it to get us out of a scenario. So when we're starting to feel fearful, almost entering into the fear and saying, do I need you at this moment? Are you here to try and keep me safe? Are you here to try and help me?
Yeah.
Or are you here to stitch me up?
Is it something that we just have to live with, fear? Or can we shut it down, do you think?
I'm here with Jon again this morning, and we've been looking at different subjects over the past number of weeks, and this morning we're going to take a look at fear and how fear impacts our lives. Maybe we share a few stories. For some unknown reason, I was just saying to Jon a moment ago, but he wasn't feeling the same as me, but I'm feeling a little bit fearful of this video because it's about fear, so maybe we'll explore that at some point, but find it quite interesting. In a similar way, and when we've made the other videos, I've tapped into some of the feelings around like mask wearing or boomerang. I've felt particularly conscious of those feelings and subjects when we've done them, and today I'm feeling a little bit fearful, so it's quite interesting. But,
yeah, so that's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, let's have a talk about fear.
No, definitely, no, that sounds good. Yeah, so I mean, how does fear impact you?
So right now, I've got this fear for everything going wrong, like the videos going wrong, or my fear of explaining fear will be wrong. Somebody will criticise my explanation of fear, or even if I share a story that's full of fear, someone will say to me, "No, that's not fear. That's something else."
Right, yeah.
Like telling me like that I'm wrong. So I don't know if I said, I've got a fear of wasps, I'm petrified of wasps, and somebody watches this video back, they'll be like, no, you haven't. And like I've almost got this fear, a fear of like being wrong.
I find it fascinating because last time you said that when we were talking about zoning out, that criticism is when you zone out. And it's interesting because what you're saying now is about being criticised. And so like your fears are surrounding criticism as well.
They are.
So that's quite a big thing for you, obviously.
And I think it comes from like a fear of not being good enough. But I've tracked through my own counselling journey when I was in therapy that a lot of my fear is related to my education. So at secondary school, I had a really bad time in terms of my GCSEs. I failed a lot of my GCSEs. I think I came out of a C in English, and everything else was pretty much like ungraded or Fs, E's and Fs. And ever since then, or even before then really, but that clarified it, that don't know as much as everybody else. And I think that leads into it. So even if I was to try to give you a dictionary definition of fear, the thought of somebody saying to me, no, that's not right. Like you're explaining more of a phobia than a fear. And then I'd be like, oh, I've got that wrong. And I'd have this feeling of like shrinking and being really small, and then kind of wanting to run away. And like my face would be like red hot with embarrassment, like, and it's this fear of getting stuff wrong. I'll give you another example. I was setting up a Christmas tree in our offices one time for Christmas when I was working for a different organisation. Somebody came into the offices and looked at the tree that I was setting up, and I said something like, these. I'm going to get it wrong now. I'm going to get it the wrong way round. So these. I said, oh, these acorns look really nice, and they were like, they're pine cones.
Right. Okay.
On the tree, they're not acorns.
Yeah.
And they were like, do you not even know what an acorn is? And in that moment, I was like flooded with this fear. And then once I know I've got it wrong, I'm like this scared little kid inside this adult body. Oh, you can never get anything right, Gary.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, a really weird feeling.
Yeah.
Like this exposure of my lack of knowledge. I'm fearful that will be exposed. And in that moment, that person exposed that I didn't know the difference between acorns and pine cones. And that got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sends you in a sort of do you start sort of criticising yourself with that, or?
Yeah, I realise that I'm not clever.
Yeah.
And I just want to run away from it. But like the fear is the exposure, because I'm used to keeping all of that hidden.
I see.
But when it's revealed, that's the bit that scares me. When people suddenly see me, oh, there's the thick Gary.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it's the fear of being exposed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you were to suddenly reveal something about me that you've always known, that I didn't think that you knew.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Right.
That suddenly you'll be able to say, oh, Gary, you're ... and I didn't know that you knew that.
Yeah.
That would be my fear, that you'd suddenly expose me.
Right, okay, yeah.
For being thick.
Right.
Not intelligent, useless, not good enough.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess it's linked to your pride, is it? A little bit, like that you don't want to feel that way. Ultimately, you want to feel like you're clever on top again. And sorry, something just shut down then.
At this point, the camera decided to die, so we had to take a brief break. Bear with us. You'll notice the conversation changes slightly.
The whole time we were speaking, I was thinking to myself, this is the most I've ever talked. And in a space between you and me, and then you were.
Well, that's why I wanted you to start
a little bit.
Yeah, because I don't want it to all be.
It was
about
tapping into
me.
that. It was tapping into a fear, though.
Right.
Oh no! Now I'm going to be exposed as the one that's talking on these videos.
Yeah.
It's not John.
Yeah. So you would say that, in a way, have you been more quiet because of that, or have you just allowed me the space to just waffle on?
Really good question.
Yeah,
I think I've been probably more quiet because of that. Like that would be a reason. Like I'd rather you do the talking. Yeah. And then if you get it wrong, it's on you and not on me.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's like a bit of a. It's fascinating.
So really, my fear, you see, is surrounding my physical ability. My fear isn't so much surrounding my knowledge and head and stuff, but yeah, my fear is surrounding my physical ability, that people are going to criticise me for not doing well physically and things like that. So no, it's interesting. Your fear's sort of more to do with your mind, and mine's more physical. So yeah,
I think that's the thing about fear, though, isn't it? It's very specific to the individual.
Yeah, because I mean, to be honest, I'm astounded by how clever you are, really, in these sessions. The fact that you come out with what you come out with is, I've been blown away over the last year and a half. So I don't think you've actually got anything to worry about in reality. I think, everyone sort of gets confused and thinks a pine cone is an acorn sometimes, and but not necessarily that example, but other things. So yeah, I think again, it's fear is almost like an imagination, isn't it? Like a perception that something's going to go wrong or something is happening. Now, in that scenario, though, I guess someone was quite harshly criticising you by the sounds of it. So your fears became.
It was
reality.
being like realised, wasn't it, before my eyes, and that's my ultimate. So tell me more about your fear. Like, where does it come from? Why is it there in the first place?
I think having got a sort of I'm basically disabled, partially disabled, so I'm basically cerebral palsy, but not full cerebral palsy. So it's sort of mild cerebral palsy. So where my left side just doesn't function. So I think a lot of it came from comparison ultimately, from growing up comparing myself to every other kid at school, particularly in sport, because that's a physical thing. And most of the sessions somehow we end up talking about sport a lot, which is interesting. So yeah, I think for me it's always I'm always sort of wishing I was someone else. I'm wishing that I'm the sporty person on the football pitch, and therefore, like, when I'm exposed to the world as being incapable physically, that makes me feel small again, a bit like you said with your sort of criticism. I feel small inside. I feel belittled. I feel that I'm not able, and I want to just get out of there and feel strong ultimately.
And what's the element within it that would make you particularly scared? So that kind of, maybe the image of a petrified child when it's dark, and they're like, "Get me out of the dark, mummy, get me out of the dark, this is too scary, I don't want to be in the dark, I don't want to be in the dark," and they're panicky, and they're full of fear. Like, what element of your story that you're sharing taps into that scared, fearful, shaky? Do you know what I mean? Where the feelings are much more intense.
Funny enough, I think it does come down to criticism again, for me even, because like the fear is that someone's going to criticise me for being incapable physically. That not only they're going to voice it, but they're thinking it all the time. So in a previous session, we talked about sort of projection and boomeranging thoughts through people's head. So I'm constantly using my boomerang and projecting thoughts that the other person is thinking I'm incapable. So every time I set up in here, I'm constantly thinking Gary's thinking I'm incapable, I can't do this, things like that. Yeah.
And that's a fear. So is there any way, I don't know whether, I'm not even really sure I've ever done this in counselling with you, and I'm trying to think of it if I've done it with other clients.
Yeah.
But it feels like, as we're on the subject of fear, and this makes me feel a little bit nervous, is it worth us trying to activate fear in each other, like almost make it live, because we now know what one another are fearful about, and I could maybe speak in a way which might tap into your fear, and you could speak in a way which might tap into my fear. And I'm saying I'm feeling nervous about it because I'm wondering what would happen if you were fearful in here, and I'm not even sure how I would feel if I allowed you to trigger my fear, and whether that's even healthy to you and me. And this is back into my feeling, am I getting this wrong, or is this the right thing to be doing now? But there's something in me that senses, like, for the viewer, like, there's one thing to talk about fear, but it's another thing to actually watch it unfold between us, because at the moment we're in our minds, aren't we?
That's right.
And fear is not just something in your mind that you're worrying about a future event. But fear, like, feels like it takes over your whole body.
Definitely.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
So how should we try and make each other fearful in here?
I guess a way for me to do that, to make you fearful, would be if I criticised you. Now I don't know what I'd want to do. Like, I could come up with some hypothetical criticisms, but I don't know whether then that wouldn't trigger fear.
And I think that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because how do we make it live and real, but not hypothetical? What if you were to try and tap into my fear without making it hypothetical?
So I guess I've been in the past, I've sort of criticised you for your slow speeds in terms of replying to text messages. And now I think hopefully I did it in a sort of a nice way, but I would say that has sort of niggled at me, and therefore that would be a criticism I could use. But I can feel
like I'm like slightly squirming in my chair, so I think it is activating something in me. So like it's I've got a couple of feelings going on. I've got that exposure of I've not been good enough for John, and I'm not clever enough to keep up with all these bits of communication with different people, so it's tapping into that. But it's also tapping into this I guess it is the fear that's generating this, that I now need to prove myself to, or I need to justify why I'm so slow in my response, which is what I think I did before when you criticised me.
Yeah, you've done it.
Justify it.
You have, yeah.
But rather than allow your criticism of me just to be there, I've struggled with that. I feel like I want to squirm out of it.
Yeah.
Rather than like allow you to say, Gary, your communication's rubbish, and for me to take it on the chin. I can't do that.
Yeah. So what is it about being criticised then that makes you feel like that way? Like why can't you just sort of sit with the criticism and just acknowledge it? Okay, they've criticised me, I move on. Is it because you're telling yourself I've now got to change, or is it that?
No, I don't think it's about change. It's more, it taps into a much more childlike feeling in me. Like it is much more related to fear. Rather than, oh, John's told me my communication's not quick enough, therefore I should change. Rather, what happens to me is you tell me my communication's not quick enough. I feel then like this little child, this shrinking feeling in me, and you've exposed something in me, and I'm not good enough then. I'm not bright enough, not clever enough to stay on top of things. I'm not organised enough. It taps into this feeling, I guess, of not being enough. So rather than you saying it and then I change and then that sorts it all out and it's completely and utterly fine, it's more likely to send me in a downward spiral of not being enough. Here's another reason to prove that I'm not enough, just like the acorns and the pine cones proves that I'm not enough. Oh, John has exposed another thing in me that shows me that I'm not enough, and it sends me back into like being a child, like that feeling that children get where they're not good enough. That the scared things, you know, when a child feels scared of the dark, that obviously it's got stuff to do with insecurity, but there's much more of an emotional body feel, and like the whole of them's involved.
It's sort of a shivering, fearful. Isn't that's it? Right. Yeah.
Like we're you and me. I squirmed a bit in my chair when we were talking earlier about your criticism of me, but it wasn't that same feeling of like being lost in the middle of a forest and you can't get your way out, or scared of that. It wasn't petrified.
No, that's right. So
it's just it was tapping. It was tapping on my fear.
Yeah.
Rather than you telling me that I'm rubbish at communication was tapping on my fear, like tap 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 tap. Rather than I was squirming. Rather than I feel petrified.
I think there's degrees of fear, isn't there?
Ultimately? Definitely.
And it depends how far we're pushed ultimately in the realm of fear. So I mean, for instance, I had a bit of a sort of an angry boss a few years ago, and he sent me into being petrified of him.
So how did he send you into that?
Well, because he was shouting at people, he was sort of being quite intimidating, and I think for me, fear, it ties in with the fact that I'm not going to be able to stand up for myself appropriately, because I'm not good in an argument, really. So my fear is if I get told off, I'm not going to be able to hold myself. And I might do something I don't want to do, like say something I don't want to say, that type of thing. I'm not likely to punch people, just the way I am, but I think that fear just makes me sort of coil up inside and just want to go to a better place. I think it might hark back to when I was sort of like in school and had a bit of a strict teacher on one occasion in one year, and I still vaguely remember sort of being fearful of her. And going into school sort of really terrified that I'm going to be late and that I've got to get there on time because she's going to tell me off, type thing.
That's more like it, isn't it? So like the way that I was sharing, that almost is like a low level fear, but the way that you were sharing then was more of that petrified feeling, and it sounds like there's something to do with the volume of somebody's voice, but also maybe intimidation, that power, someone trying to exert power over you makes you kind of shrink inside.
Yeah, that's
So if,
right.
if I were to start to really shout at you and raise my voice and be critical of you, what would that do?
I would want to leave straight away. I just want to get out of there. Like,
Is it tapping into anything now?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I want to get.
Just saw
I want to
with
get
your
up
hands,
and
just become a bit fidgety.
Yeah, that's it. I don't want to be here. Like, it's the feeling.
It taps into that.
I want to get out. I want to go to a place where I feel relaxed. Like I can take things at my own pace. Is something that's quite a big thing for me. Like I like being not very very physically able. Everyone else seems to do things so much faster than me.
Yeah, so someone criticised your speed.
Yeah.
So we've been having some camera difficulties this morning. So if I did it in a softer tone and said, "Oh, John, it's not been great that we've had some camera difficulties." That might be in the same way that you told me about my communication tapping on your fear.
Yeah.
But if I were to raise my voice,
John,
it's not good enough. This camera stuff's not good enough.
Yeah.
What happens? Did anything happen then or not?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, it sends me into I'm not able. I can't do it. You're stronger than me. I'm weak.
Did you get scared then?
A little bit, but I was thinking about shouting at you, so it didn't fully freak me out.
Yeah, what were you thinking about shouting at me?
You're an idiot or something like that. You're an idiot! Something like that.
Yeah. Did you see my eyes go like that?
Yeah.
See, that just tapped into my fear.
Yeah.
So like that was on my button, wasn't it? You know that's my fear.
Yeah.
I fear that I'm an idiot. So that was the perfect word to use, and you probably saw it, Mike.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, like
that's
it. You got it, didn't you?
Yeah,
you got my trigger.
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah, I don't think you were an idiot.
Yeah,
by the way.
sucked the life out of me. Yeah, but you delivered it in a way where I thought.
Yeah.
Does he?
It. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. No. So.
And my shouting about your camera didn't. It got in a little bit, but not as like that.
I think fundamentally, I know what you believe. Like you're for me and all this sort. So I think that overrides it.
It's a bit hypothetical, isn't it?
Yeah, but when there's a question mark over someone like my boss, I began to think he was slowly sort of giving me criticisms here and there, and then I saw him one day shouting at someone on the stairs, and that sort of sent me into a big like I can't be here. And
because he wasn't shouting at you, he was shouting at somebody else on the stairs. But you saw what he was capable of.
Yeah, I saw what he was capable of, and therefore the next day when I went into work, I was trembling. I was
literally physically shaking.
Physically shaking.
And what was the fear, if you could put it into words?
The fear. Well, I don't even know. I just
try and go back there. Go back there in your memory. So how old were you?
Probably about 25, something like that. Yeah.
What were you wearing?
Just sort of like a grey jumper.
What did the office look like?
Sort of like it was just an open plan sort of office with computers around the edge, and he sat in the middle. And
what does the boss look like?
I don't know whether I want to go too deep because
because of the confidentiality of it. But what I was trying to do there is to try to bring you back. Being that 25-year-old John again.
Yeah.
Because then you're more likely to be able to re-experience what you were scared of. So you saw this incident unfold on the stairs where he was very shouty towards another colleague, and then the next day you went in trembling, and I'm trying to discover why. Like, what's underneath all of this? And so I was trying to send you back in time.
I think.
So walk in as a 25-year-old in your mind. If you shut your eyes and replay it.
Yeah.
Walk in.
Yeah, he's. I'm struggling to be honest.
How come you can't?
I don't know. I've sort of closed it down a little bit, filtered it out over the years, because I just sort of bury it. I guess bury it because I don't want to feel that pain.
Yeah.
I want to just forget about it. Ultimately, I don't want to feel incapable. I don't want to feel like I can't do something.
Yeah, so you can't send yourself back there. So when I say be 25 again, shut your eyes, walk you through it.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm struggling to connect to this, Gary.
Yeah.
I can't do it because you're trying to protect yourself, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're trying to defend that part of yourself. I don't want to go back there and feel petrified.
No,
again.
it was a horrible feeling walking in there, and I literally had to quit because of it. I quit my job because of it.
So that was the lead up into quitting.
Yeah, a couple of days later I quit.
You were gone.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Wow,
do it.
look at
Yeah.
the how petrified you were.
Yeah, I couldn't stay.
So
with
2
that
days, couple of days later.
Yeah.
I couldn't stay with the fear.
fear. Yeah,
You were out of there. You were gone.
yeah.
So
That's right.
this fear, would you say that it overwhelmed you, that it overcame you to the point of having to quit? There was no other option?
It was all that I could see at the time.
It was your only option available to you at the time?
Yeah, it was like I put on the glasses of fear or something like that, and I couldn't see anything else. It was like fog all around me. All I could feel internally was this fear that it's going to, I'm not going to get on well here, and
or that he's going to what?
He's going to tell me off or
shout at you,
shout at
completely
me,
lose the plot. You're struggling to find
I don't,
what
I'm
would make
struggling,
you so petrified.
I am struggling to find, I think it does hark back to, like, my granddad was quite a strict person as well. And I remember feeling very fearful and intimidated by him.
If you go round to visit and see that, your body language there?
That's right, yeah. I mean, he was nice to a degree, but he had a bit of a sharp edge. And I do remember, like, feeling like that. And I think it does, again, it sends me strangely back, similar to you, as being
into a child.
Yeah.
I think there's something about fear and being scared that sends us back there.
Yeah.
Because I think those feelings of being scared and fearful, they're very relatable to being a child. So you've got young children, I've got young children. You probably know their fears. I know my children's fears.
Yeah.
And they're very real to them.
Yeah.
So when you start to talk about your work and the fear of this boss, it immediately connects you to your granddad.
Yeah.
And then it immediately makes you feel young again.
Yeah.
Like a kid.
And I think there's something in fear, isn't there, where it's connected to being helpless.
Yeah.
And a child is ultimately helpless to
Yeah.
a degree. They're dependent on their adults around them. And like my granddad, when I was staying at his house, he was my only adult there, so I was dependent on him. And if he was shouting it, like, I can't go anywhere else.
You had
as a kid, I can't leave.
You were dependent on him.
I'm stuck there. Like, I don't want to be there.
Stuck in fear.
Yeah, that's right. So when I was working again, it took me back into being a child, helpless. Oh dear, I can't get out of this situation.
Felt small. You shrunk.
I'm employed by him. He's my boss. So you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm trapped. It's a feeling of trapped.
Yeah. So you were trapped in your workplace and you had to get out of there.
Yeah.
And in a way, you could get the escape route by quitting, which you did 2 days later. But with your granddad, you were more dependent on him than that.
Yeah.
So you had to remain trapped. I'll tell you what it's making me think about, and I don't know why it went through my head. Imagine pretty much a newborn baby.
Yeah.
That is absolutely dependent on their mum's milk.
Yeah.
And let's say the mum is breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And let's say the child has reached the point of becoming very, very hungry and needs that milk.
Yeah.
And then the mum just walks off. Imagine how petrified that child's going to be for their life.
Yeah.
Like they literally think or feel in their body that they're going to die.
Yeah.
So they are fully dependent on that mother.
Yeah.
So in that feeling of being like a child, we are fully dependent on people.
Yeah.
And if the people in those moments pull away from us or reject us or shout at us, it's tapping into this fear for our life.
Yeah.
That's why we're so petrified. We're fearing for we're going to die here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Was it tapping into that when like that feeling that the
I
boss
think
was
so.
going to shout
Deep
at you?
down
Was
it
it
is,
tapping into I'm going to die here?
Yeah, I'm going to die because I'm stuck in this job. Like when I was in year 3, I had quite a strict teacher as well, and I was stuck in that classroom. Like she was telling me off, I can't get out there.
Yeah, and she could literally crush me with her words. She could kill me with her words.
That's right. Yeah,
like you almost did a minute ago. That almost killed me internally. You idiot.
Yeah,
or, suck the life out of me like I was a kid again, like I was a little baby.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and it impacts you going forward as well. Like so, if you have several instances lined up like that, then you start to believe the fear sometimes, don't you? And you start to live the fear all the time.
Yeah, and you're in touch with fear much more.
Yeah.
So if you're super conscious So I'm super conscious of my education or lack of education.
Yeah.
So I'm tapping into that fear all the time.
Yeah.
You're really conscious of your body.
Yeah.
So you're on edge
Yeah.
all the time if
All the
anything's
time.
related to your
Yeah.
body, or if anyone makes any comments about even somebody else's body,
Yeah.
your antenna goes up. You're
Yeah.
conscious.
Yeah.
So how do you feel around people with physical limitations?
Oh, I've got a lot of empathy for them, and I want to help them out. I want to sort of be there. I want to come up under them.
Where does your
Yeah.
fear go? So if you were in a room of physically disabled people, what would happen to your fear?
It would go completely out the window. It's an interesting one because I get social anxiety, right? And I've noticed with myself, I can speak to sort of someone who's who's got special needs or something like that. I can speak to them a lot easier, and I feel relaxed. The fear's gone. Absolute social anxiety's gone. I'm like having a chat with them because I don't feel under them. But most other people I feel under, especially people who have got a bit of now.
Yeah, look at your body. So if we put you in a room of very physically capable sportsmen, if we put you in a gym,
exactly.
and that gym is full of testosterone and pumped up blokes,
Yeah.
how do you feel?
Like a mouse.
Like a mouse.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're shrinking again.
And I don't want to
being
talk
that
to them,
kid.
so I go quiet. I don't want to speak to them. I just go silent.
But if we put you in a room of disabled people because of your weak left side, not only have you got a lot of empathy for people that are physically disabled or struggle mentally, but your fear goes. But it disappears when you feel that the power within you, the power balance feels more equal. It disappears. But because you have a fear of not being good enough within your body, if we put you in a room of people that you feel are more physically capable than you, you shrink.
I
You
shrink. I go
You become
silent.
a child again. You become scared.
I can't do it,
fearful. You actually can't do it.
No.
Could you go to the gym later? Just go to a gym. Could you go?
Yeah, I can go. It takes a lot for me to get in there because I know that everyone's looking at me thinking, you fat moose.
I don't actually think they're thinking that. That's a boomerang.
No,
but
it's a boomerang.
It's tapping into your fear.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
A couple of people might be thinking it.
Yeah,
Let's go with that. Let's tap into your fear then.
Yeah.
So you walk into a gym and they're all thinking it.
Yeah, and they start
How does that
saying
make you feel?
it. I've been in.
Start saying it.
So I went
fat
into.
moose.
It happened to me. Like I went into a weightlifting gym, and on a couple of occasions, one person I sort of was a friend, and he sort of said, "Why are you here?" And then but then on another occasion,
You had a friend of yours who said to you, "Why are you here?"
Well, he was.
That's a bit of an oxymoron.
He was
isn't it?
joking. He was sort of banter, but it still hurts.
Yeah.
It still hurts.
I'm not sure it was a joke to you.
No, that's right. But then on another occasion, I was sort of weightlifting or something, and an older gentleman came over, and he said, "Look, mate, your form's all off. Like, because my left arm, it's just like shot. Like this, if I had two of these arms, I would be like pumped probably.
Yeah, you'd be fine.
I'd be fine. But like this arm is just like doesn't.
It's not got the power of your right arm.
No, that's right. So he was sort of saying your form needs to sort of, you need to do something with your back or whatever. And after that point, I didn't go back to the gym. I started weightlifting at home because I didn't want the pressure.
Yeah, you were too scared to go back.
Yeah, I was too scared that would happen again. Yeah. And I haven't been back to a weightlifting gym, and I sort of don't really want to do weights.
You got no time, no inclination, no thought of going back because it would be too scary.
Yeah, because it sort of hits there like someone's coming down on top of me, like they're sort of so big, like they're gonna sort of.
Look at that big small thing again, isn't it?
Small
it's like
thing.
It's child, adult. It's that massive power imbalance, that shrinking fear, and that's what fear does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It like shrinks us inside. We're scared. We become so little, so small.
Yeah, exactly.
So weak, helpless.
Yeah.
The baby craving milk, and the mum walks off.
Yeah. I guess the question with fear is then how do we overcome these feelings? Like how do we, in that moment where you've been criticised or something, how can you say to yourself, it's okay? Like I don't have to shrink back. I can just or,
do you think
or
it's
is it are we just or is it something that we just have to live with, fear, or can we shut it down, do you think?
So I'm thinking, what would have helped me in the moment where you shouted at me, "You're an idiot"? What would have helped me in that moment? And what came to me was to be very firm with you back, very
Yeah.
assertive with you back, and say, yes, I feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
So almost like really owning the feeling, because it was only so scary to me that you shouted it at me, because I believe it about myself already.
Yeah.
So if I come back to you and say, you've hit the word right on the head there, John, that is exactly how I feel. I do feel like I'm an idiot. Something, then I get a sense of relief.
Yeah.
I don't know, I get a sense of relief. So I don't know, if we go back to your work boss scenario and that fear, like if he did shout at you,
Yeah.
and you just, instead of shrinking, you were able to,
Yeah.
or in the gym, like you, and he's criticising your form, if you're able to say back to him, yes, you're right,
Yeah.
my form is not very good because I've actually got a weak left side and that's impacting my form.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. Would you feel any sense of relief?
I would. I think that you've hit the nail on the head in a way. Yeah, I think that bringing it into the room, there's something powerful, and we've talked about this over the last year and a half in sessions where I've often said to you, sort of, okay, how do we fix this then? And often the solution tends to be if you bring it into the room. So when I sort of set up my stuff here and I start to get fearful about sort of you're thinking that I'm fat and I can't do camera stuff and all this stuff, if I start saying it, it helps me to calm myself down and carry on in a way. So I think if I was in that gym situation, bringing it into the room would be a real help.
Yeah, can we almost say that acknowledging fear impacts fear? Because I think fear thrives when it's isolating you.
Yeah.
So if you bring it up, it's no longer isolating you, is it?
No.
So if, if somebody
yeah.
feels like they're going to have a panic attack and they actually say to their mate, I'm feeling really panicky, they're not so isolated anymore. But if they don't tell their mate, then they're entering more into their mind, more into their fears, more into their panic. Their mate's suddenly not there anymore. They're closing them down. They're alone with their panic.
Yeah.
And then it thrives. Like, I don't know if you've heard of phrases like fear thrives in the dark. But if you like turn the light on, it's not dark anymore. So it's like almost like bringing the reality of the fear. It's being vulnerable with it, isn't it? It's like,
I think there's a
okay,
tremendous
I fear
power.
I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. You're right. I'm an idiot, John.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm okay with saying that to you.
Yeah.
But when you shouted it at me not replying sent me into a place of fear, into a spiral. My eyes went like this, and I was then, the temptation was to shut down.
It's basically like you go into a dark room,
Yeah.
isn't it? Basically, fear is you go into
it sends
a dark
you
room
into that darkness.
in yourself. Whereas if you start to sort of confront it with vulnerability and sort of say, like literally directly sort of confront it, and if you were to turn around and say, well, actually I believe that about myself
Anyway.
So what you've said there actually hasn't particularly helped me out because I know it already, or something like that.
And you shouting it at me made me feel scared. But acknowledging it to you. I guess like the danger is, like if you're with someone that's your friend, like that can be a really healthy exchange. But if you're with an abuser and you share your fear with them, you bring it out into the open and you're vulnerable, they could play on that fear.
I think there's some situations where you do have to get out.
You just got to run.
And to be honest, the situation I was in at work, I
had to get out. It wouldn't have worked
I couldn't
for
work
you
with
to
him
own
anymore.
that with him. You had to get out of there.
Yeah, I couldn't work with him anymore because I saw what he was like. Because I knew that's underlying. It's like a volcano ready to go at any time. He could erupt. And I was like, I'm not living with that volcano, man. I don't. It's too risky that I'll get covered with lava.
I need to keep safe from the lava.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think in some situations that being vulnerable is not the right thing to do, and actually sort of saying this person is dangerous ultimately, and you have to get out. There's some situations where you need to get out, and not put up with it.
I completely agree with that.
And I'm sure you see that a lot with some of your clients, that they need to get out of a situation ultimately.
Because the fear, and again, maybe this is where sometimes there's a difference between real life fear. So if I walked out at 3 a.m. from my house, I could have a fear that I might get jumped, there might be drunk people out, and there's more of a possibility of that at 3 a.m. at night.
Yeah.
But if the streets were empty, it's a fear that I'm still playing around with in my mind, and it's not a real life fear yet, and I can confront that. But if I walk out at 3 a.m. and I'm scared because there's a mob of people shouting abuse at me and they've got some broken bottles in their hands, that's a real life fear. Me being vulnerable with them about my fear is going to do me no good. They're probably going to beat the hell out of me.
Exactly.
I need to run or get out of there.
Yeah.
So I think there's like fear that's related to your mind, isn't there? That maybe sometimes is a bit more irrational. Or there's fears that we've carried with us since being a kid. And then there's the real life fear. Like you're in the fear of your life here.
That's
like
right,
where your instincts kick in.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point to distinguish that. Yeah, because ultimately fear is a bit like a pain receptor, isn't it? Like if you put your hand on a hob on a hot stove or something, you've got pain receptors telling you to get out.
Yeah, I get my hand away from that.
And the fear is a bit like that pain receptor in a way. It's like if I get close to the edge of a cliff, like that fear is telling me, get the freak out of there, mate, because you're going to die.
So in that context, you can look at fear as a good thing. And I guess for the caveman, fear was a good thing because it protected them for their life, didn't it? So like in those instances that we're sharing now, fear is actually of benefit to us. Whereas in other instances, maybe when it's a bit more in your mind and you're playing around with it, it's not always as a benefit. It can create worry and anxiety.
Yeah, that's right. I think there's a rational fear, isn't there, where actually you're safe as a person, you're safe, you're not going to get physically injured, but equally you don't feel safe inside. It taps into your insecurities and things, and that's where I think we can use the power of vulnerability to either sort of confront someone, because being vulnerable is about confronting as well, so we can get angry back and it's justifiable to, I mean, you could have got angry back and said, you flipping idiot, mate, you're an idiot yourself, shouting at me. I do my best here, I've been working hard counselling you for a year and a half or whatever, and I've sort of been a great support, and like you've got no right to come in here and tell, so you can fight back, and that's being vulnerable but confrontational, and I think that's completely fine.
And sometimes that's needed. So it's like it's not one size fits all, is it? And it is very. And I guess maybe at the end of the day, you almost have to trust your instincts and to trust those those pain receptors that you're talking about. And, and mate, I don't know. I've heard it said that instincts are like 70% right. So it's almost like if you're going to trust something, you might as well trust your instincts.
I think that's something that's just come to me as well. Say we're in a scenario where we're going into our child, like, oh my gosh, I'm a child. What we need to tell ourselves is actually, look, I'm not a child anymore. It's okay, John.
I'm an adult.
Start speaking internally. Take a minute in your head and start like encouraging yourself. I don't have to be intimidated by this person. Like that. There's no need for me to be intimidated. He's not going to harm me. I can, actually, what his decisions are his decisions. Like, and I guess if we kick in our self voice, then that means that we don't have to go into being that child again, and then we can start to become vulnerable or confrontational as the need arises.
Because like in a way, like when you're setting up your cameras and you get that fear or that feeling of, oh, what does Gary think of me, I'm not good enough or whatever, we are going back into the child a little bit, aren't we, of the dinner lady that shouted at you, or the teacher that was not good at you, or the work boss, or your granddad, or we're tapping back into all those things. But when you're setting up your cameras, you can remind yourself, actually, Gary's quite nice. He's not the teacher. He's not my work boss.
He's not the manifestation of my boomerang.
He's not going to come down on me like a ton of bricks. Some of these other. So it's not just the boomerang. These are in reality. Some of these people are really nasty to you. But that reminder to yourself that not every human being's like that. And even though these people were nasty to you, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be nasty to you.
That's a big thing for me. I stereotype everyone, and like if it's happened once, it's going to happen again. That's the rule of thumb. Like
That's your fear trying to protect you, isn't it? It's trying to keep you safe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, we see it in sort of government and stuff, don't they? They bring in a strong law after someone has, been dreadfully hurt in a very unique scenario that's probably never going to happen again. They bring in a law to sort of stop everyone doing a certain thing, and all the good people suffer because that one bad person has done something really wrong. So I think we do it in society as well as sort of internally.
I mean, a really good example of that, if I was to oversimplify it, I can remember a time where I was in youth work as a youth leader.
Yeah.
And we really enjoyed bonfire night, fireworks and whatever. And back in the day, it was completely and utterly free.
Yeah.
But now, if you were to run the same event, there'd be loads of health and safety measures in place. There would be a big tape around the bonfire. You'd have to stand a certain distance away. You might not even be able to have fireworks unless somebody knew what they were doing with the fireworks, which are all good things, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they've been put in place because maybe someone got too close to the fire and burnt their hand.
Yeah.
But you can also, by trying to remove fear or risk, you can also remove fun. So you don't see young kids climb trees anymore.
No. Because
maybe a kid or two has fallen out of a tree and broken their leg, but you forget about the fun element of climbing a tree.
Yeah.
You put all this risk adverse health and safety measures in place.
Yeah.
But you can, by trying to eliminate fear and risk, you can eliminate fun.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is this example of it going too far.
Yeah.
So you can let fear dominate your culture or your society.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas other countries, we were in Holland, and it was amazing. They had these parks that were completely different to our parks, and there were some risky, climbing frames and rides and stuff to go on. And you're like, my God, if someone falls off that, they're going to kill themselves.
Yeah.
But the parks are full of kids having loads of fun.
Right. Yeah. No, amazing.
Yeah.
It occurred to me just when you said that. I thought to myself, am I going to let fear dominate my life?
Yeah, and do you at the moment?
Yes,
Does fear control your life? Does it dominate your life?
I'm a very fearful person, and it's because I've got this tape player in my head that's continually telling me everyone else around me, and everyone is thinking negative about.
Yeah, they're these monsters that are out to get you.
Yeah, that's right.
But you're not going to let fear dominate. That just came into your mind.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let fear dominate my life.
I'm going to change my voice and not let the tape player just play the same old record or tape or whatever. And I'm going to change the tape, and I'm going to put a new tape in there that says, John, you are, you don't have to be fearful.
Maybe the old tape was there for a reason, but now's outdated.
Exactly.
The old tape protected you from granddad, or protected you from this boss having a go at you, or it helped you to get out of scenarios, or particularly helped you as a child. But maybe now you don't need the tape, or maybe it's time to change the tape, have a different tape.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's what we all need to do is when we're confronted with even the reality of our fear, is to put on a different tape in that moment. Pause what's going on, change the tape, because the tape is probably going to be the old one by default. Change that, put a new tape in that says it's okay. We can cope with this. We've been here before. We can survive this. We're not going to die.
Look at the way it clenches in your fist. And maybe almost in addition to that, so all of that, but maybe in addition to that, maybe you could ask your fear, do I need you in this moment? Because remember, we're going back to those scenarios where sometimes we need it to get us out of a scenario. So when we're starting to feel fearful, almost entering into the fear and saying, do I need you at this moment? Are you here to try and keep me safe? Are you here to try and help me?
Yeah.
Or are you here to stitch me up?
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's a very good point. I think that's what we need to do. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Gary.
Yeah. Good to see you, John.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
we got there in the end, didn't we?
We did. Yeah. Hopefully, anyway. Oh, good. Excellent.
Cool.
Oh, thanks.
Very interesting one, that one.
That actually became quite good.
Yeah. I found that one of our more interesting ones.
Yeah.
You never know what other people are going to think, but
no.
I've really engaged in it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That was a really good run. I'm quite looking forward to listening to that back.
Very interesting, isn't it, fear?
Yeah,
And
very.
like that moment at the end where you came to, like, I'm not going to let it dominate me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, almost like you have to engage.
You have
in
to
a fight with it.
You have to stop and think. You know, it's okay. Like, it's there's something massive about self-voice, actually, both the negative and the positive, because I bet you half the problems that come into this room are to do with people's self-voice.
Yeah.
And if the tape player in their head or whatever was a lot more positive, then I'm sure that it would be a different story. But it's not positive for a certain reason. But it's a case of trying to override that and sort of pausing it, isn't it?
Or the reason was there in the past because it needed to be.
Yeah,
reason, but
yeah.
It doesn't need to dictate.
No, that's right.
Be in the future reason.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, good stuff. Right. My head went down the line of Chandler Bing listening to. Did you ever watch Friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I am a strong, confident woman. Like I almost need to play that every night or something.